QuickBooks Pro Desktop 2021. Class tracking by division, setup, multiple step chart of accounts for a multiple step income statement. Let's get into it with Intuit's QuickBooks Pro Desktop 2021. Here we are on the desktop. We're going to open up the test file we set up last time. We can do that by either opening up the program or opening up the QBW file we set up last time. Let's do it this time by opening up the QBW file, double-clicking on it. That will open up the program and then the file within it. Here we are in our file. I typically like to get rid of this ribbon up top. You can do that by going to the View tab up top, going to the top icon bar, and that'll move this thing up there. Then I move it back, View tab, back to the left, and that'll move it back to the left, and that ribbon's gone. I'm going to maximize the home page here with a little maximize item. I'm then going to go to the View tab. I'm going to set up the Open Windows list. So we have the Open Windows list on the left-hand side. I now want to take a look at the chart of accounts that has been set up and see if we can think about how to put that into like a traditional multiple-step income statement format that we'll be using if we have like multiple divisions. So if I hit the drop-down up top, and the lists drop down, let's take a look at our chart of accounts. Now, if we're imagining like a multiple divisions, like a traditional kind of setup would be that we want to see possibly the income statement and we want to be breaking out, say, the selling expenses versus the administrative expenses and possibly the basically division expenses where we're basically doing work. So let's imagine we have like a division 1 and a division 2, two major divisions, and then we also want to be breaking out what you could think of as a division, which would be the selling type of expenses that we would have in the admin type of expenses. So let's first think about the selling and admin down below. Note that some of these expenses, all the expenses down below here, are items that we could break out either by column, or we can use some kind of subclass categorization to put them in a subclass kind of setup. Now, a multiple step income statement traditionally oftentimes we'll break out the selling and admin into their own classes on down below. So to do that, we might go into these expenses and add basically a subcategory and then put all these into the subcategory. Or if we wanted to, we could then break out some of these expenses because some of them might fall into the selling and or admin. We might have some expenses that would be in both. For example, depreciation on the store might be in the selling expense, and then depreciation on the office building might go into an admin category when we're breaking this out by division. So you can imagine that breaking out column by column using classes, or we can break out and have two accounts under a vertical breakout between selling and admin. So let's first think about that kind of setup. Now, it might be useful to set up account numbers now because we can use a different set of account numbers for selling and admin. That can be a kind of internal control that could be used. So let's set that up by going to the Edit dropdown, go into the Preferences. We want to go to the Accounting up top, then Company Preferences, and then we're going to use the account numbers. And then I'm going to say OK, and it's going to set up account numbers for us. Notice all the expense categories are in the 6 area. So let's think of like the 6 range as the selling expenses, and then we'll set up the 7 range to be admin expenses. So for example, depreciation, we might have a selling depreciation on like the store or items for the selling where we sell, and we might have depreciation for the admin for where we do our work, administrative work, and that kind of thing. So we might have 2 depreciations. We could break them out horizontal or vertically, column by column using classes, or we could break them out in terms of having one above the other for the selling and then the admin. And if we do that, we can use different account numbers, the admin starting with 7, so it would be 72400 possibly, and then mirroring what we have up top. So let's think about what that kind of setup would look like. If I went down below and we said, okay, let's add some accounts, I'm going to go into and say we want to add a new account. This is going to be the parent account for all selling expenses. So I'm going to say it's going to be an expense type of account. I'm going to say continue, and then we'll set it up as 60,000 because it's going to be the parent of all the selling accounts, and then it's going to be selling expenses, something like that. That'll be the parent. I'm going to say save that. And so that puts it up top in front of all the selling. Now I'm going to go down to all these expenses and we're going to apply it either to selling or admin. So let's set up one more, and the next one is going to be in the 70,000s, and that'll be the admin expenses. So I'm going to say account, new, and then I'm going to say it's an expense account. This will be the parent account for the expense account for all admin expenses. And I'm going to say this is going to be administrative expenses. And we'll make this 70,000, and then we'll save that. So now we have that there. Now I'm going to make all the expenses going to be subordinate to one or the other of those two categories. So we're going to go into all of these items. So the automobile, we might have one. We might have auto expenses for our salespeople. We might have auto expenses for our administrative. We might be doing different things, and we might want to break out our auto expense. If I'm going to a customer, then maybe I want to be saying that's in sales, or if I'm going, doing admin type of work, then maybe that should go under admin. So I might have two. This is one area I could have two accounts. So one way we could set up the two accounts is I can say, okay, I'm going to not double click on this. I'm going to edit this, right click and edit it. And then I'm going to say that this is going to be a sub account of the 6,000 account we set up. Sub account of the 6,000, and then we'll save and close. Now it's subordinate to that account. So it's going to show up on the income statement as a collapsible item. Now I could set that up if I have an auto expense for admin down below as well for the administrative expenses. I might set up an auto expense and possibly call it 70200. So I might say new, and then expense, and then say continue, and it's going to be 70200, and then we're going to call it, what was it, just to find it down here, it was auto, we'll call it the same thing. It was just called automobile expense, It's going to be subordinate to the account number 70,000 and 70,000. So automobile 70,000, I'm going to say okay. And so now it's going to be apparent down here. So that's one way we can break these out. You can imagine how this is going to show up on the income statement. It's going to be one above the other, as opposed to if we broke them out by class, which means it would be side by side. So the bank service charges, we could have the same thing. You would think the service charges might be the administrative expense, unless we have separate accounts and whatnot. So I'm going to just right click and edit that. And I'm going to change then this 6 to a 7, and I'll put it down below. And then I'm going to make this subordinate to the 70,000 in admin. So I'm going to say, okay. So I just move that one down here. Computer and internet expenses. This is another one. We might have some that are in the selling area. We might have different computer and internet expenses in another area, right? We might have two different expenses, or we might be allocating between the two in some way. Now, note that if we have two distinct locations, it would be easier for us to break out the two separate accounts to break them out between. But if we have one location, we might need to break out using some other method, using a percentage breakout or something like that to kind of estimate. But let's go ahead and edit this one, edit the account, and then I'm going to make this subordinate to the 60,000. Then I'm going to copy that one. I'm going to copy it and say save. So we've done that. And then I'm going to make this one 71700. So I'm going to say new one. It's going to be an expense. It's going to be 71700. Computer and internet, subordinate to the 70,000. And then I'm going to say save and close. So now we've got it down here, and we're breaking those two out. Depreciation, same kind of thing. Right clicking on it, I'm gonna edit the account, and so I'm gonna say this is that for admin. So that looks good, and then I'm gonna make it subordinate to the 60, and that looks good. And then the 6240, I'm gonna make 7240. I'm gonna make a new one, new account, and then I'm gonna make it an expense and make it 7240, and same account number, but this one is subordinate, not the same account number, same account name, subordinate to the 70,000. Save and close. And then we have dues and subscriptions. So maybe this would just be an admin one. So I'm going to just change the number. I'm going to say edit. This will be admin. I'm going to make it a 7 up top, and then I'm going to make it subordinate to the 70. And then we'll save and close that one. Then insurance expense, we could have two insurance expenses. Depends on what our, what we're doing here. So I'm gonna say let's edit that one, and say we might have one for the selling and one for the admin. So I'll break that out and we'll say, okay, this is going to be subordinate to 60,000. And this is, so I'm going to make 73300. So I'm going to say account, new, and then expense. And then we'll set up, it was 73300, I think it was, I hope. And then we'll set that one up, and that'll be subordinate to the 70s. So there we have that, and save and close. And then the interest expense, let's just make that an admin. So I'm going to say edit that account, and we'll make that admin. So I'm just going to say this is subordinate to the 60s. And there we got that. And then we have the meals and entertainment. So we might have both for this. So I'm going to say edit the account, and we're going to say, I'm going to copy that, make it subordinate this one to the 60. And then I'm going to make 74300 by going to the accounts rise up, new, and then expense. And then I'm going to make continue. So this is going to be 74300, and that'll be subordinate to the 70s. So there we have that, and save and close. And then office supplies, so we could have both here. I'll just make this admin though. So I'm going to say edit and say all the office supplies are in the admin. Probably would have both here too. But I'm going to put this in 70. I'm going to change the account number to a 7. And then I'm going to say save and close. And then payroll, we could have payroll for both, right? We're going to have payroll for selling and then payroll that's applied to admin depending on who we're paying. So I'm going to edit the account and say, let's copy the payroll expense, make this subordinate to the 60. Then I'm going to make another account 76000, whatever. So I'm going to say edit new or account new, expense, continue. And then this is going to be 760000. And this is going to be payroll. And this will be subordinate to the 70s. Save and close. And then we got the professional fees. I'll just put this into the admin. So I'm going to edit. I'm going to say this is 76, so on. And we'll make this subordinate to the 70s. And then I'll save and close. And then we've got the rent. Now this could be, again, we could have a store that's separate from the other place. Or we might have one place that we're paying rent on that we do both activities in and need to apply some kind of percentage between the two, which we can do by account, or we can do it by class, and we can do that same kind of thing. So I'll break this out. I'm going to say edit. And we're going to say that this is going to be subordinate to the 60. And then we're going to copy the rent expense. And this next one's going to be 771. So I'm going to say new account, expense, continue. This is going to be 771 and rent expense. And we'll put this subordinate to the 70s. All right, there we have that. And save and close. Then we have repairs and maintenance. Again, we could have one of these for each of the locations. So I'm going to say edit. And then we're going to say this is going to be repairs and maintenance. And I'm going to make this subordinate to the 60. And then I'm going to say 772 is the next one. So I'm going to say new account, new. And then I'm going to say that we have an expense. It's going to be 772. And there it is, and subordinate to the 70s. Save and close. Then we have the telephone. This would be in both as well, most likely. So we're going to say edit. So I'm going to say telephone expense, subordinate to the 60s. And then save and close. And then what's 781. So new account would be expense and continue. It's going to be for the 78100, and then telephone, subordinate to the 70,000 accounts, save and close. Then we have the travel. I'm just going to delete that one for now. Just going to say delete account. Utilities we probably have for both. So I'd say, okay, let's do this last one, edit. And then we're going to say this is going to be subordinate to the 60s, and then I'm going to copy the utilities, and then 786 is going to be the next account. Accounts rise up, new, it's going to be 7 expense account, and then 78600 utilities subordinate to the 70,000s, and then save and close. So there we have it. And now you can imagine basically this being broke out in the format of expenses on top of each other, right? So if I was then to enter some information into the system, I can say, okay, well, revenue is what it is. So if I was to enter like income, then I'm going to enter, say, an invoice, and we'll say this is going to I'm going to say customer 1, setting up a new customer, and we'll make this as of 01/15/21, so we'll be working in 2021, and it's an invoice, and then I'm just gonna say the item is item 1, setting up the item, gonna make it a service item, and it's gonna be for 10,000. The income account is gonna be, we'll call it just the income or sales account. So I'm going to say okay. So, and then let's save and close that. Take a look at our profit and loss reports drop down, company and financial. Profit and loss standard. Let's take a look at the standard from 01/01/21 to 12/31/21. So there's our sales line. Let's put some expenses in place. So if I say then we're paying the utilities now. So if I go to an expense account and pay the utilities, we got to set up a checking account here, bank account, account number 10100, account name, checking account, and then I'll say save and close. So we're going to be paying from the checking account, and I'm going to say this is utility company, and vendor setup. So this is going to be 500. And then when we set up the expense, then are we paying one utility bill for two places, or are we paying 2 utility bills, right? We could say if I'm paying utility bill for the sales and a utility bill for the admin, or maybe I break out based on like the square footage or something, the selling and the admin. So let's go ahead and break it out. We're going to say that let's make this 1,000, and let's say that the selling is going to be 60% of that, or 600, and then the admin, I'm sorry, the selling for the utilities, say utilities for the selling, there it is. Let's bring this out a bit. So that's the full account. So here's the account, it's a subcategory of the selling, and then utilities for the admin would be here. That's going to add up to the 1,000. So then I can save and close that, save that, and then if we go into our profit and loss, we'll see that we have this breakout now. We've got the income, and then we've got the expenses broken out between the selling and the admin. So now we can start entering these items into the chart of accounts, breaking them out. So if we went to like the auto expense, so we might say, all right, we've got an auto expense, and we'd say that we're paying well, I'll just skip the vendor. It's going to be, let's say $300. And let's say we paid auto for, administrative auto. That would be in the 70s. And then I'm going to say save and close. And then if I go to the profit and loss, we've got it tracked down here in the auto for the admin, not in the selling expenses, right? And then if we had auto for selling, we can go to the other one. If we went to like computer and internet, so we can break that out, one by one, depending on what the computers is going to be used for. So I can say computer and internet. Let's make another one. I'm just going to skip the vendor and say this is for, let's say 250 and computer and internet. And let's say this is admin again. So I'm going to go down to the 70s. And there we have that, and we go to the profit and loss. So we can see now we're breaking this out, and we have these kind of subcategorizations. If we then go to the next item, what else do we have here? Chart of accounts. We've got the insurance, meals. So we might have meals and entertainment. That might be on the sales side of things, right? So we might say home tab, and say that we have meals. And so I'm going to say this is going to be for $750, and then I'll say meals. And this one's going to the 60,000 accounts for meals and entertainment. Save and close, save and close. And so there we have our profit and loss, breaking that out. So we get this nice breakout. The income categorizations broken out by class. And then on the expense side, we've got the expenses breaking out by the selling and the admin. And then if we had like things that we sold, like the cost of goods sold account, then would be in another account up above that. Now note, you can imagine now, what could we do with classes here? Well, instead of breaking it out this way in this vertical fashion, we could have broken it out kind of horizontally. Instead of adding all those other accounts, we could have said, let's break it out with the use of classes, and then we could see it side by side. Or we can do both, right? We can do both and have it broken out in this way to show the vertical fashion, and we can have the classes that would be breaking out. So it would be broken out, all these would be moved basically to the side here, and we'd be breaking it out by both class and the vertical fashion. You don't have the side-by-side kind of comparison in that way, so you can think of like the pros and cons between these two methods. So we'll talk more about that in a future presentation.